Hey everybody, welcome to the advice stream. I'm your host, Jeremy International. We are live on YouTube and Twitch and Facebook and JeremyInternational.com. The advice stream, if you're new, is the stream where we play old video games and we give advice. If you would like to seek advice from me and our guests this evening, please head on over to, wait, I have a button, to JeremyInternational.com where you can there's a contact form and you can send in questions and we can discuss as a community. Hopefully we can help you out. We do have a few questions already lined up for this evening, but we're always open to more. I always think that's more fun than playing old video games. I'm feeling a little low spoons tonight, if you know what I mean, so hopefully we can get some things going and kind of amp up the volume, something. But I hope that all of you are doing well. It's been a couple of weeks since we've been on the show. Wasn't feeling so great for a little while, but I'm more or less good enough tonight. Gonna have a little beer. This episode of the Advice Stream is unofficially brought to you by Haribo Gold Bears, Champagne of Bears, reoccurring contributor unofficially to the stream. And we'll be playing this evening Sim Earth on the Super Nintendo. I never played that game before, just got it. Don't even really know what it looks like. But we're going to figure it out together, just like we always do. We'll figure it out together. Our guest for this evening, our reoccurring guest, he's been on the show for quite a while, and we always have a good time, so we always bring him back, is your friend and my friend. Let me make sure I'm ready to unmute people here. And that is our friend Oldmin. Hey, Oldmin, can you hear me?
I can hear you just fine. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great. The technology is working. How's it going, Oldmin?
I've had a really good day. A very internet-centric day for me.
That's good. I described you in the notes for this evening's show as the king of the internet.
No.
I mean, I didn't vote for you, but I don't think you vote for a king. So if I had to vote for the king of the internet, I'd vote for you. Sure.
At most, I'm the people's chosen representative for a very limited period of time and can be recalled at any time.
Well, that's good to know. You said you had a good day. That's always good to hear. I had a good day too. What was we do this at the dinner table with my kid. I have a 3-year-old kid. Every night we say, what's the highlight? What's the best thing that happened to you today? What's the best thing that happened to you today, Oldman?
I met somebody who helps me moderate my large internet community in
Mm-hmm.
person and her friend, and we had a really nice time.
That's good. That sounds like a wonderful thing to happen in a day. It's been hey Amir, welcome to the stream, Amir. Good to see you again. I am doing a little better. You know, it's ups and downs, and I before I get into my favorite thing of the day, I'll go ahead and say, it's if you're not feeling great, if you're feeling a little under the weather, if you just don't feel like doing it today, don't do it. I mean, unless you're like, I don't know, the president or like commanding a rocket ship or something, probably the thing you got to do today isn't as important as you think it is. And if you're not feeling like it, don't do it. Take a day. I mean, you got to do it.
All Biden has to do today is make a solid poop and let his 23-year-old unpaid interns make all the decisions.
I'm pretty sure those interns get paid, old men.
Yeah, you're right. Probably at that level, they probably do.
Yeah. I think if you're interning, Monica Lewinsky was getting paid, sure. Anyways, that's a different conversation.
No politics, right? No politics on the stream.
But it's good to see your name there, Oldman. My kid was break at her school for a while, so she hadn't been to school for like a week, and today was her first day back. And I went to pick her up today, and she was very excited to see me and gave me a big hug, and that was nice. That was my highlight of the day. Sometimes big things, I think that's kind of a big thing. Sometimes the highlight of your day can be little things. I also had a really good chocolate chip cookie, so I got that going for me. What are we doing? This is the advice
Sim
stream.
Earth.
Hello, everybody. Just to make sure I'm using all my graphics, today's unofficial sponsor, as I just mentioned, is Haribo Gold Bears. I always think it's very important when we talk about Haribo Gold Bears to remember that the green gummy bear is strawberry flavored. Never forget that is the case. It's a very important part of the gummy bear experience. And just because no one ever believes me when I say that, I have included here an image from the back of a bag of Haribo Gold Bears that clearly shows that green is strawberry. Moving along, we're going to be seeing that image a lot, and I've got my little bag, almost depleted bag of Gold Bears here because I think a little bit of sugar is probably going to help me out in the evening. And I'm sure you get lots of packaging sounds there. Sorry, everybody. So what else? What else is going on? Been watching a very good show called Masters of the Air on Apple Plus. If you like dramas of war times, it's certainly a little propaganda-y because any show about a war tends to be. But I've been enjoying that. It's very intense and very dramatic. Is there anything you're watching, Oldman? You reading? You're ingested in any way that's ringing your bells, floating your boat these days?
I've been unable to detach myself from true crime YouTube. But I did want to mention a news thing from this week, which is that Vice.com is getting shut down.
Oh, really?
And
I didn't know that.
they wrote the classic article about sugarless Haribo berries or
Yeah, I
berries.
remember that article. These are not the sugar-free kind because they make you experience an unpleasant type of biological phenomenon that we're not going to discuss during the show today. And
Didn't I already?
I don't intend to feel I don't intend to experience that biological phenomenon this evening
No.
personally. Do you think that's good or bad that Vice is shutting down? I always like Vice.
I don't know. I really don't. There are things about Vice, like the fact that Gavin McInnes, the founder of the Proud Boys, was also the guy who founded Vice.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, like you did, I read a lot of very good articles from Vice.
No. I had no idea that they were shutting down. Well, R.I.P. Vice. We hardly knew you. That's not true. You've been around forever. Shall we? You want to start the show with a question? That's what we're here to do. Let's read a question from the internet. Let's start with a long one. The rest of the ones I have for this evening are kind of short, but I think this is an interesting one. It's a kind of like a parenting one, a little bit maybe, but more I think of like a mental health related question. Here we go. I have a 15-year-old son, Clyde, in quotation marks. His birthday is in a few months, and he's very much looking forward to getting his learner's permit and starting to drive. I have serious safety concerns about this, and not just normal teen learning to drive for the first time concerns. Clyde is the most accident prone person I know and shows a shocking degree of carelessness that makes me fear for the safety of everyone around should he be behind the wheel. Clyde has for years tried to catch birds on the wing by simply leaping at a bird flying overhead or passing by and grabbing. It has never worked, although he has managed some nasty falls from the practice. He has been taken out of his school's woodshop program after repeated incidents involving saws, and he has quite a few scars on his hands and wrists from them. They can't take him out of his science course, so he partners with his teacher's assistant for all lab work that involves open flames. He has started 4 kitchen fires in the last year alone and can remember that he shouldn't put metal in the microwave or plastic in the toaster oven, but somehow which one was which managed to elude him even after my wife put up notices on each. On the last one, he tried to retrieve his Pop Tart from the toaster oven, still encased in its plastic wrapping, by simply reaching in and grabbing for it, setting his shirt and himself on fire, and netting him a trip to the emergency room when we managed to douse him. We have checked him repeatedly for learning disabilities, other structural issues, and neurodivergence. He does have ADHD, which he takes medication for. But in the words of his lead doctor concerning behavior, reference is not consistent with symptomology of his diagnosis, and that he was probably just like this. We've tried to be supportive of him, but oftentimes support involves keeping him away from things that can burn, cut, or break because he will find some way to hurt himself on it if left to his own devices. Which brings us back to the automobile. Putting him behind tons of rapidly moving metal is too easy to imagine ending in disaster, but he really does want to drive. All of his friends either have learner's permits or are looking forward to getting them. It is developmentally appropriate. And of course, if he can't actually drive a car in the US, he's severely disabled in his ability to move around independently. At the same time, I can't shake the conviction, I told you this is a long one, that he'll kill himself or others within an hour of getting behind the wheel. What can I do here? Yeah.
It's a tough one. The first thing that I want to say that is not it's more of a personal thing, I suppose, than related to the question, is that I kind of wish that my psychiatrist had diagnosed me with just like that instead of all the fake shit that they gave me after 10 minutes of conversation. Uh, it's not, it's that's more, like I said, more of a personal thing. This is a 16-year-old boy
Yeah,
who
almost.
has a very reckless record
Yeah.
and wants to drive a car. So the worry is very, very valid. It's valid. It's a very valid worry. Um,
Yeah. My thoughts are, I mean, we don't have a choice but to take the question as factual on its face. I would imagine the reality is something a little bit chiller than what when you're like in it with
yes.
someone and they're continually doing things that are frustrating. People tend to inadvertently hyperbole a little bit. Hey, Jesse.
Maybe it's not a diagnosable thing anyway. Maybe he is just reckless.
Yeah, I certainly that's a possibility. I think that continuing to work with doctors, getting a second opinion is probably the way to go. I definitely don't think you should be letting this kid get behind the wheel at this point. But
Right. It's a kid.
yeah, the type of behavior the letter writer is describing is not appropriate or sustainable behavior. Something is up, and I don't think anybody is. I mean, some people are just like that because they have some kind of developmental disability or something. Something is up with this kid, and I
Yes.
think I'm a big advocate for second opinions and for continuing to push doctors and to talk to other doctors or try to find more specified specialists, which I think is really the thing they should be doing,
I agree.
to try to find an explanation because this is not sustainable behavior. And they said how many kitchen fires in just the last year, and not being able to understand that plastic doesn't go in the toaster and metal doesn't go in the microwave, and they keep getting them confused even when it's labeled. Like something is up with this kid. And
Have you ever done that though?
done what?
I accidentally lit something on fire in the microwave.
Um, I mean, maybe I've done it once. I'm almost 45. I've been using a microwave for a long time. So, I mean, I definitely pretty consistently can remember to not put metal in the microwave or plastic in the toaster
But
oven.
a 16-year-old
Yeah,
is
I
is a 16-year-old pathological because they can't remember that microwaves light things on
I
fire? I'm
think
not
that
sure.
one instance of setting yourself on fire is enough to
If
get
you go to the emergency room after it, yes,
yeah,
absolutely, and it should be treated as a pathology if
yeah,
somebody's that young because you want to help them and cure them.
yeah. Or find some, there's occupational therapy, there's maybe some other type of medication. But this is not for, normal or not, who's to say? I'm not a doctor. I'm legally obligated to say I'm not a doctor. That's not true, but I tell that joke all the time. But uh, whether this is normal or pathological behavior or not, it's unsustainable behavior.
Yes.
Eventually, this
And
kid's going to have to
dangerous.
know how to get around. They're going to live on their own someday. Even if they live with their parents until they're 60 years old, their parents are going to die at some point, and they're going to have to take care of themselves. So at some point, this this is going to have to be something that's managed better, and you got to keep talking to doctors until you find someone that understands. I think one of the
I don't know. Okay. Everything you said up until that moment where you said, let's keep talking to doctors until we get an answer from the doctors. That is something that I'm not sure about. I think people should really consider this 16-year-old needs to be talking to doctors and needs to be talking to psychiatrists. And her fear about this kid being on the road, 1,000,000% valid.
yeah.
On the other hand, people search for answers. People search for a name to add to something. And perhaps it's not like he has the flu. Perhaps he's just not a responsible person because he's a 16-year-old kid. And a lot of 16-year-olds are not ready to drive.
Yeah, and I mean, I get that. I get that, Oldman. And I mean, I think the thing that should be considered with what I was saying before about keep working with doctors until they can
Yeah.
figure out what's going on is that diagnosis, especially of mental health, or mental functioning, or neurotypical neurodivergence type of issues, is not an easy or a straightforward thing to do. It is more of an art sometimes than a science. I think one of the reasons why. Hang on a second. Oh my goodness, I'm not using my microphone correctly. Hang on, everybody. I just got to do a little change my um, connecting thing here. Sorry. I forgot to plug in all my stuff. Can everybody hear me still? I
Oh, the
sound
bass
okay?
has increased.
Oh, hello.
You sound good.
Okay, good. All right, everyone sounds better. Um, what was I gonna say? People, you watch TV shows. Someone's sick, they go to the doctor. The doctor figures out what's wrong with them. They get them treatment. They get better, or they don't, and that's the end of the story. But that's not always how it works in real life. That figuring out what's wrong with someone isn't always straightforward, and some doctors really invest in a diagnosis that turns out later to be incorrect.
That's their profession, is to give you a diagnosis. That's what a doctor does. So, of
Yeah.
course, if you go to a whole bunch of doctors, they're going to find something, a label, and that label, in this case, it sounds like it's right. It sounds like this kid does have a mental problem that needs to be addressed by doctors. But on the other hand, there's a lot of 16-year-olds who are just 16-year-old boys especially, not very responsible people.
I agree with all of that. Setting yourself on fire tends to be the end of that irresponsible era in a kid's life. Yes.
Yeah.
Here's a question. Here's an interesting question I propose. The DSM-4 or DSM whatever that has whatever number they're at, that has that's like the compendium of all mental illnesses. Do you think, how to word this question? I think everybody's probably in there somewhere. 5, it's DSM-5.
Yeah, it's 5. That's why I did that.
Age myself, I used to run a university bookstore, and it was the 4 when I was there. Probably that kid's in there somewhere, I'd imagine.
Yeah, but if everybody's in there, then it's worthless and a pseudoscience. But I'm not saying it's a pseudoscience, because it's not. It's a science in its infancy. That's what it is.
Yeah. And if we're talking about physical health problems, there's some illnesses that are really straightforward, like the flu, for example. But then there's some diseases, like when people use blanket terms like cancer. Cancer is actually hundreds of different diseases that are really different and have different causes and different symptoms. That's a really broad, or when people say Parkinson's disease, that's a collection of symptoms. There could be a million different causes for it. pneumonia is just a symptom. There's viral pneumonia, but then you can have pneumonia for a million other reasons. And I think that that's a thing that with mental health, really almost always what you're describing is a collection of symptoms. And the
Yes.
way to treat those symptoms can be really different from person to person depending on how they got there. But our world isn't built around the idea of someone taking the time to say, okay, this is what you're dealing with. Let's go back and figure out how you got there so we can customize a treatment plan for you so that these symptoms have a lesser impact on your life. And no one, very few people are willing to do that. Now, and I'll add in, I'm a chronically ill person in a bunch of different ways. I've been really fortunate enough to have a few really great doctors that have done exactly that with me. Is to start by saying, this is where you're at today. It'd be really easy for me to write you this prescription or that prescription and kick you out of my office. But we know from my past experience that not all of those treatments work. And so, taking the time to work with someone, get to know them as an individual person, and continue that ongoing process of, we're trying this. Is it making you feel better? Is it making you feel worse? How are those side effects going? If that doesn't seem right for you, let's try to go in a different direction. Like, that is a never ending, ongoing process. But because so many doctors either choose to be, or in a lot of cases need to be, in this kind of transactional retail type of experience, that they got to get you out
Kaiser.
quick so they can get the next person in. And
Kaiser is my experience for
yeah,
a long time now, and they are pill pushers, and
yeah,
they meet with you for 10 minutes and they buy what you say, um, or they don't buy what you say, and that's a big problem too. So there
yeah,
are two aspects of this that are fighting against one another, especially with women. Doctors are not willing to treat it seriously sometimes as an actual pathology that needs to be treated as a medical illness.
yeah,
And then on the other hand, there are times when a doctor is going to treat something that is very normal as a pathology. And it might be something that is better treated by saying, this is how you are right now. Let's work on it. Talk to a therapist.
yeah,
I'm not going to give you a bunch of pills that I talk to you for 10 minutes or 15 minutes in my office about your pathology, like I know you after that.
yeah,
Like I have a lot of very conflicting feelings about psychiatry and the medical profession in general.
yeah.
And I think it's really important to consider it might be a pathology. And in this case, it sounds like it is, because this kid had to go to the ER after lighting himself on fire for Pop-Tarts.
I mean, let me tell you, those brown sugar Pop Tarts are real good, but I don't think they're worth catching yourself on fire.
No, the ones without any kind of icing on the top, those are my Pop-Tarts.
They make those? I've never seen
Oh
a
yeah,
Pop Tart
well,
with no
barely.
icing.
The blueberry ones are expensive. The strawberry ones are still out there.
Um, what do you mean expensive? They like they're official Pop Tarts, and they're more expensive than other flavors.
I feel like they're
Pop-Tarts?
phasing them out because I buy them in bulk.
Okay. If you're just joining us, this is the Advice Stream. I'm your host, Jeremy International. We are live on Twitch and Facebook and YouTube, as well as JeremyInternational.com. I am joined today by my friend and yours, Oldmin, king of the internet. And we've just been talking about a parent of a 15-year-old who just doesn't seem to be able to get it together and understand what's happening around them really at any time. They want to drive. The parent's like, I know they're going to kill somebody if they let them get behind a car. So we're just talking about different ways to, be persistent in the medical industry to try to get some better understanding of what you or your kid or whoever is going through. And I think Oldman and I are in agreement that this person needs to be a little bit more persistent and maybe try a different doctor. But I think we disagree over what the potential end result of that journey should be.
I wouldn't say we disagree. I'm more pessimistic, and you might be more optimistic.
Okay.
And that's it. Like we agree that this kid does need to be seen by more doctors.
Yeah.
And her concern is this mother's concern is very, very valid. And the only thing that I not every time, but I like to say, medical science is a science in its infancy. It's easy to think that we have a medical science that is more advanced than it is, and we don't.
Yeah. Having said that,
Especially with psychological conditions.
having said all of that, please overall listen to what doctors tell you.
Go to your doctors. Go to more than one doctor if you don't like the first one that you see.
Yeah. Or
Keep at the doctor
if you feel
thing.
like you're not getting better, or if you're not being taken seriously by your doctor, if you're able to, get another doctor.
The doctor thing is strategy number one. That's what I would say.
I'll share a story about that that's kind of funny. Maybe. I think it's kind of funny. So, 8 years ago, I had thyroid cancer. And the doctor that died, I wasn't being picky about doctors. I called my insurance company. I knew something was up. I called my insurance company. They send me to an endocrinologist. I just go to the first endocrinologist I see. We do a bunch of tests. She gives me a diagnosis. I have surgery. Your thyroid, does a lot of, they had to take it all out. Your thyroid does a lot of stuff in your body. And when you don't have one, you have to take a pill every day to replace all of the stuff your thyroid normally does. And the pill is very popular. Lots of people take it. Even people that have thyroid glands take it for various reasons. If their thyroid is unperforming, they take a little dose. Someone like me has to take a big dose. And this medication has a brand name and it has a generic version of it. And my first doctor was like, we're going to put you on the generic version because it's easier to get. And she said, some people say that the brand name version works better for them, but there's no data behind that. It's just all in people's mind. It's marketing. So we'll put you on the brand name and you'll be fine. And so weeks and weeks go by. I'm taking this pill every day and I'm getting weaker and more tired. I have a hard time sitting up in a chair, and this is going on for like months. I'm supposed to go back to work because, I've completed all my treatment. And there's no way I can go back to work. So I go to her and say, hey, you got to write a letter for the giant corporation I work for, and so that I can have some more time. And she's like, but you're fine. And I'm like, I can barely sit up. She's like, yeah, but your blood work is fine. So there's nothing I can do. And I'm like, but you get that you see that I feel horrible? And she's like, I used to be a doctor for the Navy. And if you were an officer in the Navy, you'd be back on full assignment by now. I wouldn't be able to do anything about it. And I was like, I gotta find another doctor. So honestly, I don't even know how I found. I think like I went through like the magazine for the city I lived in. They do like an issue where they're like, these are the best different types of doctors in the city. And I found the best. No, I'll tell you how I found my endocrinologist. Is I went to my gastroenterologist, who's young. I think is about my age. And I asked her if she knew an endocrinologist, and she's like, yeah, all of the young lady doctors get together all the time. This is the name of an endocrinologist. She's really cool. She'll take care of you. And I go to her and she's like, everyone has this problem if they take the generic version. Here's a prescription for the brand name version. I'll make your insurance company cover it. I can do that. And then take this for a couple weeks. Here's your letter for your work. Don't worry about it. And take this for a little while and you'll feel better. And it's exactly what happened. And it saved my life because I wasn't going to be able to work. I was starting to think that I was just going to, be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life or something. It was very difficult for me to even stand or sit up for long periods of time. And it was just that this one doctor's like, this is the data that's available. I don't care what anyone says. This is the data. This is what we're doing. And she never listened to me or took me seriously. And I found a doctor that did, and it made all the difference.
But Jeremy, can I ask you something? Are you sure that it was thyroid cancer and your thyroid just wasn't like that?
Right. Yeah. You're just like that. You just have cancer. Just deal with it. Just accept that you have cancer. I mean,
no, but I'm super glad you found somebody.
Unfortunately, some types of cancer where people have to just accept that that's what they got.
Yeah.
Thyroid cancer is the easiest type of cancer that you can have under most circumstances. So. But that's one of those situations where a doctor that's willing to listen to you and cares makes all the difference. And I just, the last thing, we've been talking about this letter for a long time. Last thing I'll say about that letter is you got to find a doctor that thinks of your son in the same way, because something is up.
Yes.
I don't know what it is, but maybe there's treatment for it, maybe there's not. But at least like a diagnosis with a name on it. Because to be honest, if this kid's going to be like that forever, if that's just how he is and there's no way to treat it, he's going to need accommodations. He's not going to easily be able to work a job if he can't remember that, A goes here and B goes there. Even if he's risking himself catching on fire, he can't seem to get that. So he's going to need a diagnosis as his life goes on, because he's going to need accommodations.
Yes.
That's
why it's treatment A. That's why it's strategy A, is to go to a doctor, talk to multiple doctors. If your first doctor is not one who helps you out, then you should do that.
Yeah. Amir in the chat says it's scary to think a bad doctor, a bad practitioner can quite literally ruin your life. Yeah,
it's happened to me before.
Yeah, I mean, not to get too dark, but I mean, Amir reminded me, they're like in the 60s, they used to give people lobotomies like in the doctor's office. You'd go into the doctor's office and they'd talk to you for a little bit and then perform a procedure right there while you're sitting in an easy chair that like fundamentally changes the way your brain works for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and you'd go watch Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf afterward and think, that was a nice cartoon.
That it's terrifying to think, we put a lot of trust in doctors, and we kind of have to most of the time, but don't let a doctor do anything that's irreversible without getting a second opinion, for sure.
I have one thing before we go to Simmers. I just want to really strongly say that doctors are the first people you should talk to about problems like this.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to cast doubt on it. What I'm trying to do is talk about the other side of it. That's all.
The business of medicine is horrible. The science of medicine is amazing and magical and saves millions of people, including mine.
Yes.
Probably.
Yes.
A lot of people listening out there's lives.
So much better than bloodletting.
Yeah. So you have to make sure that you're in a situation where you're taking advantage, you're maximizing the science of medicine to your benefit and minimizing the business of medicine also to your benit.
Okay, and it's hard to find a person like that too.
Without further ado, what year? I'm gonna hold this up. I don't buy unless it's a Star Trek game. I don't buy complete Super Nintendo games. But just so everyone can see, if you want to see what it looks like, this is glare. This
Beautiful,
is SimEarth.
Though.
I've never played. It's a Maxis game, so it's real sim. I've never played it before. I don't know anything about it whatsoever. But we're playing this on my analog Super NT, and let's go over to here.
Let's go.
Let's go. Except that my controller's not working. That's fine. Let's try. Let's go back to here, and let's do a restart. We're working on it.
I can hear it.
Yeah, but it's not the game. That's the startup screen for the analog. Okay, there we go. We're back in business. Maybe I just let it sit for too long.
What's FCI?
I have no idea. 1990, I'm assuming 92 is when this game came out. 90's probably when it came out on a PC. Let's reduce that volume a little bit.
Oh, this is such a better intro than the PC version. There is no intro in the PC version.
Very Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah.
And
my gosh.
I mean, this is my age, but the graphics on a Super Nintendo, you can't get better than that.
It's beautiful.
Okay, what's gonna happen? Let's see. Hold on, let me move my cursor out of the way. Here we go. Load data, first scenario, random planet, Daisy World, dictionary, backup, initialize. First scenario?
Yeah, let's do a scenario.
Just because I like to go over all of the hardware I'm using too. I'm also using my 8-bit do wireless Super Nintendo controller.
Nice. That looks like a newer one. One of the older ones that I have is very buggy.
It works
Same
really well.
brand, same brand.
Here's the thing about 8-bit do that I didn't know until recently, Oldmin, is that they have a firmware updating program you install on your computer, and you plug the controller into your computer with a USB cable, and you can push out firmware update. I've gotten a lot better performance on these after I've started doing that.
I gotta try that out.
Yeah, it's through their website. You to use at least most of Analog's devices, like the Super NT, or I use this with my Pocket, Analog Pocket also sometimes, that you need a firmware update to get it to work.
Interesting. Well, I should have guessed.
All right. Well, do we move around?
We're on Atlantis. I think you picked Atlantis.
The Lost City of Atlantis. Let's pick a place that's got, like, whoop, I didn't do anything. That's, well, I was thinking land and water. I don't know. Let's do this.
Yeah, let's try out Atlantis. Why not? It looks like there's some land.
Oh my god. I don't know what I don't know.
This is a very complicated game.
Yeah, it is. I was thinking about this before. I was like, I should probably turn this on and play it for a little while, or watch a video or something.
We love to just jump in naked on this stream.
If we get bored, I have Jeopardy for the Super Nintendo we can get. I suspect we'll be doing that after not too much of this. Let's go through these buttons and see what they do. Here's an eyeball.
Magma.
I see magma. Biome.
Nothing.
No biome.
Can we start with another planet just so we get a little more land, maybe?
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna reset.
Don't have to give up.
Yeah. Oh boy, I should have thought about this a little bit more.
No, it's not your fault that they arranged all the planets in alphabetical order without thinking which is the first one you're going to see.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, Spore designer who might be in the chat?
If you're out there, person who worked on Spore, let me tell you, that game was a huge deal for me. Actually, when I was going through radiation when I had cancer, so that game's wonderful. Good job. There's so much to do. There's so much to do in that game. It takes you like weeks and weeks and weeks to start to get bored with it.
It's a very good game, and it was underrated because when it first came out, it was so buggy, and then like 2 weeks later, it was fine. But it got really bad reviews because it was buggy.
But it's like, I don't know. It's like 12 different games, and depending on how you can have just so many different experiences with it. So what's a Daisy World? Should we try Daisy World? Maybe that's
because I dated a girl named Daisy, and I don't want to go to her world. Let's go to first scenario and pick a different planet. If I meet another very nice Daisy, then maybe. So this is an aquarium, not able to sustain civilization.
This planet is not able to sustain civilization in its current situation. Lol. Tell me about it. How can live? Oh, I should have read faster. This is exactly what we did before. It didn't let me change anything else. So it's all water. There's no ground. I see. This planet is like super rudimentary. So let's go here. This is the shallowest water gets, is that light blue. There's no land. That's why the planet's called aquarium. Maybe over time land develops.
You can also make little edits to the terrain, if I remember correctly.
I don't know how.
Nor do I.
Oh,
what's this?
I hit select. What's this little guy? Hey,
Let's
little
check
guy.
him out. They said no life.
They said no civilization.
No civilization, okay.
So I don't know what I'm pushing buttons. This little fishy guy, can't place that in the ocean.
You have
this
rock
is
selected.
Rock.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have to find a place to put rock. Can I put it on top of the sea star?
I had the same problems with this game as a kid. It's like
I just don't
overly
understand.
complicated.
Can I put it up here? Who was this game for? I'm assuming it came with a book. I don't have a book.
Yeah.
Like
a 3-ring binder. Yeah, that's a tidal wave. Do they make you start with aquarium?
Oh. Tricoordinate has been born. Thank you, little Earthman.
That's cute.
So life is evolving. An insect has been born. Well, that was fast. Oh, I'm not doing anything. An amphibian has been born. I mean, we're moving in the right direction, I guess.
Yes, we are. I feel like this game really leans heavily on the sim aspect. Like, more than any other sim game.
We've got cephalopods. I need to find a place to make rock.
I have trouble getting hard sometimes, too.
It happens to everybody. Oldmin. Okay, that's not working. Can we do something else? I'm pushing buttons. Is it getting shallower? Oh.
Ah, what's this?
That's deeper.
Imagine being a 10-year-old buying this game.
I know. Mommy, I hate this.
This is an Earth.
The only thing I can think of. Okay, well, we got that.
The all-seeing eye.
Indicator, air temperature, rainfall, air current, ocean current, water temperature.
Magma.
What about magma?
No magma.
No magma. Nope, that's not what I meant to do. Well, how can you be an amphibian if there's no land? You know what I'm saying?
That's a good question.
That's the save. That looks like a floppy disk. What's this? Map mode.
Edit. What does that do? I know that in SimCity, they have a mode before the city starts where you can freely edit the terrain.
Yeah. I bet this is real riveting for the people watching at home. We're going to figure this out, maybe, everybody, and then you're going to be like, oh, wow. So that doesn't do anything. What does this do? Geosphere.
Amir says this is avant-garde even for Maxis.
I know. Whoa. Can we make...
Okay, magma. Let's make a meteor, just for funsies.
Well, I also want A volcano is what
Oh
I
yeah,
want.
because I did see that there were a few like crater-looking things.
Let's see what happens with that volcano. 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 Look at those little shrimps. All these little critters are cute. Game? Terraformer? Oh, look at the monolith, like from 2001.
Yeah. It's expensive.
Yeah, I don't have...
This is bringing back all kinds of memories of me trying to figure this out when I was a kid and being very disappointed.
I'm getting disappointed. Let's try... I don't know what else to do.
I do know there is a way to create land.
Yeah, there's gotta be.
See, all those little circles are supposed to be comets or asteroids that have hit the planet before you even started. That's what that geography is supposed to look like.
This?
Yeah. That one's interesting. That one is more like Oblivion with the Imperial City in the middle.
Where did I go into here?
What does edit mode do?
What, those arrows are there now.
Okay.
But I am stuck on the monolith. How did I get that, and how do I get it to go away? I don't remember how I got that to come up.
Because it doesn't even count in oceans, apparently, in the
Oceans
biomes.
don't count. Avant-garde. What did I... Indicator?
I also don't remember if there was music in the PC version.
There must have been music, right? I mean, it's not that old of a game that it wouldn't have had music.
I don't know. Like, I think clearly the SNES version is different than the one that I played. There are some similarities, but yeah, I don't know.
I don't either. So we did this. It didn't do much.
Your axial tilt is all out of whack. You could just change it.
There we go. I'm missing something. Well, can this guy tell us something? Little Earth buddy, what am I supposed to be doing? Keep increasing biomes. The more living things on the planet, the better the environmental regulation. Okay, so there was a button that said biomes.
That seems like a data button. There's got to be like an explanation in the 500-page ringed manual that tells you what all of these little icons are supposed to mean.
All right, I'm not gonna get into that right now. That looks cool.
Reproduction. Let's try edit mode. You keep going to map mode.
I want to get the monolith out of the way so I can try to build something else. Biome.
But you can't build the monolith unless you have land to build it on, apparently, because they don't consider octopuses worthy of sentience.
I know. Oh boy, I'm giving this a couple more minutes. And then I'm
kind of having fun just like being very confused by it. That's what I did when I was a kid too. Air currents. We're gonna get a bunch more eras.
But see,
or something less even understandable.
We did this already. I need to get to... How did we select the little monolith guy? Because however we did that is what we need to do to get out of it.
This is why you have your handy co-host. I'm looking up a guide now.
Thank you. How did I do that?
Okay. It says set off one volcano. And that's still hard.
I don't know how to do that.
Let's ask an AI. I'm sorry to involve AI in this thing at all.
I
But the
got
AI is going
nothing
to tell
against
me.
AI. Ugh.
This is hilariously complicated. Access the Geosphere control panel by spending 100 DNA points to open the Geosphere control panel. Focus on the volcano parameter. Increase the size to make larger volcanoes.
Okay,
Adjust the frequency.
By the way, we only have 2 people watching us now.
I don't care. It's fine.
I don't care.
Either. This is actually a good show. They just don't know it. I like being confused when we play classic games.
We got a bot on someplace.
Oh no.
Where did the bot come in from? Anyways.
How do I open the Geosphere control panel in Sim Earth? It's like, come on, guys. This is not.
I saw the Geosphere button somewhere. Hold on, I'm gonna find it.
It looks like you have plenty of resources.
And then we're gonna make the volcanoes to the max.
Oh yeah. It costs 100 points every time you open a control panel. Imagine like a modern game where it cost 100 coins to open your weapons panel.
Right. Look at these guys. They have tools. What's this guy? They have like a little.
Oh yeah, what's going on there?
I don't know.
Monolith successful! Monolith successful!
I did it. Should I have? What does it do? I don't know. Intelligent life has evolved.
See, we didn't want to give up.
Civilization timescale. Cities are established throughout the world. War and other problems may occur. You must develop an intelligent civilization in order to... Oh, okay. I can't read that.
Get those shrimps smart. Those shrimps are already too smart.
Fish now has been civilized.
The relationship between women and fish is too complicated for me to describe on a hat. An impossible task.
See, that was I just flagged that
Thank you.
spam thing for some reason. Okay.
Wait, did we just win?
Maybe there wasn't supposed to be land? All right, I'm turning this off.
My goal is to start an industrial revolution. That seems way too purpose-oriented for the whole actual world.
I guess that was just like a scenario where you weren't supposed to do anything, but...
and what's the goal after you develop the industrial revolution? Is it to bring us all to a better place?
I don't know. Let's do another question. I'm sleepy. Let's do another question. Just so I can feel like I'm doing something besides staring at that game that doesn't mean anything.
It was pretty to look at.
It was cool to look at for sure. And if we want to, maybe we can play some Jeopardy later. But we don't have a lot of engagement at the moment.
Are you telling me that all the people that I annoyed with everyone tags didn't tune in tonight?
Hold on, I'm reporting the spam guy.
I'm going to report all my followers.
Okay. He was on Facebook.
That's not surprising. Facebook is full of bots.
Yeah, and no one ever, I don't know why I even stream on Facebook. No one ever, I mean, I get a handful of people on YouTube, all the actions on Twitch. No one's ever on Facebook, including me. I mean, I'm on Facebook either, so why would anybody watch? Okay. Here's another question. Amir says, suddenly those annoying, unskippable tutorials in modern video games don't seem so annoying anymore. I know. It's like every Pokemon games have been out for like 30 years, and everyone starts with, this is the world where Pokemon exists. I'm like, yeah, I know. Thank you. I've been doing this for a long time. Okay. I think this is an interesting one. Recently, my 22 male best friend, 23 female, broke up with her boyfriend she had since she was 16. She was, for obvious reasons, very sad about this. I went to her house after she had been shutting herself inside for about a week. When I went, everything was as you would expect. She was upset, hadn't eaten in a while, and wanted to get her mind off of things. We ordered Chinese food, and when it came, we drank a bottle of wine and read to each other. Her apartment is full of books. They are just stacked on the floor, so we would pick up a book and read each other passages and continue to drink the wine. When the hours, you can see where this is going already.
It's really sweet, though.
I know it is. When the hours pushed on, we grew tired and eventually went to bed. She had been dealing with feelings of loneliness and asked if I could sleep in her bedroom instead of on the couch. I agreed. We lay and talked to each other for another hour or so. She was laying on me, and I held her in my arms. This isn't out of the ordinary, as we have been friends since early childhood, and there has never, I really mean never, been a sexual element to this friendship. We continued talking and eventually ran out of things to say. After a while, she sat up, looked me in the eyes for a few seconds, and then leaned in and we kissed. This, by the way, the advice stream acknowledges the existence of sex, everybody.
Yes, we do.
I probably should have said that earlier before we got here. This didn't feel weird at all. One thing led to another, and eventually we ended up having sex. It was slow and felt like the most normal thing in the world. After this, we talked for a while and fell asleep. Neither of us felt awkward despite just having sex. The next morning, I held her for a while longer, and we went out for breakfast. We returned to her house and ended up having sex again. I can't explain
Of
it,
course.
but of course, but it just felt so right, if that makes sense. Nothing felt forced or anything. It's been a week since then, and we have not had sex again, but the relationship seems to have returned back to pre-sex times. Nothing is awkward, and it feels more as if we just had an extremely intimate bonding moment rather than having had sex. It feels closer. I feel closer to her. I'm just wondering what goes on here. How can our relationship feel exactly the same even though we have experienced each other at our absolute most vulnerable? Does anyone have any ideas? I always let the guest go first, Oldman. So, what are your thoughts on this one?
I'm rooting for him and her, and they need to understand that everything, just because it seems like you've set a narrative in your head about what's going to happen with someone doesn't mean that's what's going to happen with someone.
Yeah.
And they seem like a very compatible two people. Of course, she's not going to immediately want him to be her boyfriend, obviously. But they had sex, had breakfast, had sex again. So this kid needs to think about that.
I mean, this is one of those things also, in Oldman, there's like a little bit of an age gap. I don't know what it was like to be in your early 20s when you were in your early 20s. When I was in my early 20s, sometimes friends just had sex together and then went back to being friends.
Yeah, and that could happen. That could happen here. That maybe she really is just looking for somebody to lean her shoulder on, but that's not what it sounds like from this guy's description.
I'm reading in between the lines, and I feel like he thinks something else is supposed to happen and not necessarily
That is exactly right.
It's that he wants it to or that he doesn't want it to. He just thinks that when two friends have sex that something has to change between the two of them. But I can tell you that absolutely doesn't need to be the case. Also, this idea that sex is the absolute most vulnerable a person can be, that is also, I don't think, necessarily true.
But honestly, though, he should try. They should try. If
they don't want to?
As we do, accepting everything based on what they say in the letter.
Yeah.
With our, comments about maybe this is not exactly accurate, but like based on the letter, she broke up with her boyfriend, then immediately had sex with her childhood friend, who it felt so natural with.
It was like a week later.
They went out and had breakfast somewhere else.
So you think, from your perspective, the big thing here is that they went to a second location.
I think that's important.
That they left the house and then went back and
had
sex.
Because if it just happened and then they were like, oh well, let's go on with our days.
Yeah.
I'm not, because that's what they did afterward. They're maintaining their very important childhood relationship, which should never be sacrificed just for some kind of fling. But that's not what it sounds like.
Yeah,
to me.
I mean, I think that there needs to be a conversation between the two of them about what they both want.
But they should have a lot more sex first before they have a serious conversation.
Oh, I don't know about that either, Oldman. I don't think.
If they want to, they should have sex for like a couple months, and then he can say, "What's going on here? We've been friends forever. This seems like it's going somewhere else." He needs to wait because they've been friends since they were children. But the sex needs to happen. These are people in their early 20s. One of them just broke up with their boyfriend and had sex with their childhood friend. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I mean, Oldman, I think you keep reading in between the lines that I don't know if it's necessarily there's anything in this letter that indicates that this is something that the two of them ever wanted in the past, or that it's something that needs to fundamentally change. I think it is totally normal in the realm of friendship that people under extreme and specific circumstances can decide to have sex once or twice, go have breakfast, come back, have sex again or whatever.
I agree.
And then immediately just go back into exactly the mode they were in before.
I agree. It's going to be real hard for both of them, even if she doesn't necessarily show it. And maybe I am reading a little bit too much into my own experience.
But what's going to be, you said it's going to be hard for them. What's going to be hard?
Because he has an attachment, and she does too, even if she doesn't want to say it.
Okay, maybe that's true. I'm not getting that from the text. Maybe that's your headcanon.
Why would he be asking that whole long ass question unless he had an attachment?
He's asking because he thinks, we've talked about this on the show before. People tend to make sex complicated in ways that it should be simple, and simple in ways that it should be complicated. I think he thinks that something has to change, whether he wants to or not is not indicated from my reading of this. But people talk about this all the time. I slept with my friend and now we can't be friends anymore. You see that in like movies all the time. I have feelings for this person, but I don't want to ruin our friendship or whatever. Like a friendship doesn't have to be negatively or positively affected. Nothing necessarily has to change if both people are in alignment, that sex can just be a thing that two people do when they're bored or they've had a couple glasses of wine or they're experiencing this heightened emotional time in their lives. And then once that heightened emotional time subsides, they can just return to the type of friendship that they had before and nothing needs to matter. I think that's a totally normal and healthy thing to do as long as they're both being honest and they both have, and it seems like they do, the emotional maturity, the emotional sophistication to be able to understand and to be able to communicate what this was. Maybe he does have feelings for her and he wants to change the parameters of their friendship after this experience. But maybe he doesn't. That's not clear in the letter.
He definitely does. Be real, my man. Be real.
I'm being totally real. That's not my reading of this.
Here's what I would say. If he treats this as a thing that has to happen, a fated, wonderful thing from the stars that has been fated from the beginning of both of their little lives, then he needs to let go of that because that's going to ruin it. However, he needs to shoot for those fucking stars of love. Freaking stars of love. I apologize.
Okay. I think that they're just two people that really know each other and like have a deep connection because they've been friends for so long.
Wow, and that's a very good basis for romantic love too. Sure. And they might realize that if they try it out, but put too much pressure on it. That's what I'm saying.
I think no one is right and no one is wrong here. I think that that Oldmin and Jeremy International have two very different emotional connections to sex. I think is what
I'm a very romantic type person. Like, no, I really think you saw me crying a little bit when you were asking that question, and like I really felt it because people at that early age in the 20s who are still figuring themselves out and still finding out who they're comfortable with, and maybe in the past both of them thought that we're just friends.
No.
And maybe now they should reconsider that. I'm not saying it should be changed. Maybe it shouldn't, but they need to reconsider it.
I think that they need to be able to have a conversation about what that night and then the next day means for them.
But they should be a lot more reckless for a little bit more. They should just be like not even talking about it, just going to each other's house, boning, having breakfast, boning again, having breakfast again. Leaving each other alone for 3 days.
That's a fair viewpoint. I think that they should probably have the conversation before that. Maybe there's no more sex that they're gonna have. Maybe it was just those 2 times, and they.
I'm not saying pressure it.
Yeah.
But I am saying like this scene. To me, it sounded like a very natural progression of things.
It did, yeah, absolutely, and I mean, maybe progression isn't the word I would use.
Yeah,
it
progression
seemed like
is
a
the wrong
natural
word.
turn of events under those very specific circumstances that maybe is an isolated situation and that they're going to just return, and it seems like they have just returned to the type of friendship they had before. Maybe it's something that they should continue to explore together. Maybe not. It's not necessary that a relationship has to arise from this. Or that I should say a change to the relationship should have to arise from this.
But imagine 10 years from now, this kid thinking, oh, I didn't try with this girl. And now she's married.
Sure. Yep.
That will haunt you for the rest of your freaking life. And they need to
only,
try. Or like, I'm not saying don't talk about it. Obviously they do need to talk about it, but they're also in their early 20s and they can be irresponsible too. And maybe they don't even have the emotional maturity to talk about it in like a super explicit way until, you know, it's been a little while.
I
Like
think
a
that
couple weeks, a month, 2 months, maybe.
a lack of emotional maturity would be, we've had sex 2 times, so now we're boyfriend and girlfriend. And
Yeah, that would be worse. That would be a lot worse.
Kind of letting a relationship change into like a romantic relationship um uh based on just like the inertia. I think that's what emotionally immature people would do, is let the inertia from 2 instances of sex turn into, now we're boyfriend and girlfriend, and then we're going to get engaged and get married and have a bunch of kids.
Yeah, that would be so much worse. I'm just saying, like, keep the idea open and don't just say like, oh, well, this is the thing that happened. Maybe let's just treat it real casual. Maybe we shouldn't even think about this.
Yeah.
I feel like if this situation, taking it on its face, happened to me in my early 20s, and I gave up on that chance, I would still be haunted by it.
I mean,
but Fred has a very good point.
Fred Undead has a good point that he's not going to be sad if she gets married in 10 years and he never did anything, if he settles with someone else, not settles like on someone else, I think is a distinction there. If he moves on like she did too. I mean, I can tell you, just to be really explicit and open with my past, when I was this age, when I was 22, 23, 24, like it was a totally regular thing to go have brunch, like, you know, get a little wasted with brunch with my friends, with one of my friends, go home and have sex, and then just immediately go back into being friends, and, you know, maybe 6 months, a year later, have sex one more time, more times.
Well, we have a very different experience. And then
just be,
I'm so sorry.
but just be friends. To me, especially in this age, that is a normal thing. That friends,
and it should be normal
under very specific and sometimes intense circumstances, that you have sex and then you just go back to being friends. Maybe you do it again, maybe you don't. But that to me is what friends in this particular age, this era of a person's life, that's a totally normal thing, I think, for people to do.
Yeah.
And, you know, like all of those friends, I'm not super close with any of them today. For me, this was, you know, 20 years ago. But all of those friends, I'm still at least remotely, a lot of them I'm remotely in touch with still. And they're all married and have kids. I don't have any regrets about any of that. I'm glad we were friends when we were friends. I'm glad we had that kind of friendship when we did. I'm glad that I was surrounded by people that were, you know, felt free and comfortable and connected in a community where that happened all the time.
Okay. And I see where you're coming from, and I agree with it. Like many times when you and I like have something that seems like a disagreement, it's not actually, because I see what you're saying. And like, again, that is the thing that he needs to keep in mind. If he even wanted to be with her in a serious way, he needs to keep it casual, because she's in a very vulnerable place right now. And that is a factor in this too.
Yeah.
But let me say this, somebody like reconnecting on Facebook with somebody they were in love with when they were 21 and breaking up their marriage because of it is a cliche, and it's a cliche for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. You know, I mean, I guess the bigger lesson there, and where we can kind of, Oldmin, you and I can kind of get back in alignment on this, is that this type of sexual interaction doesn't in and of itself mean anything on its own.
No, it doesn't.
They need to decide, this letter writer and then also his friend who he slept with need to decide what type of relationship they have, not with each other as much as with sex. And to them, does sex need to be this meaningful kind of connection, or can it be something, I mean, I don't know. There was probably a time a million years ago when a man and a woman dancing in public meant that they were committed to each other. And now you go out to a club and you can dance with 10 people, you can dance with your friends, you can dance with strangers, and then you just revert back to the normal way things were before you danced. And I think that that there's some people, I'm one of them, that at least for a significant part of my life, that sex was more like that. Not that it wasn't meaningful in some way, but that it was a thing that people just did if they were into each other and they liked each other in just a very specific kind of way. It didn't mean that you're in a relationship. It didn't mean that you had romantic feelings for each other. It's just a thing. If you like someone even in just a friendly way and you were attracted to each other, it would just be something that you do. But
God, you're so lucky.
lots of people think about sex in a very different way, and that's totally fine. That's their journey in their relationship. And I
Yeah.
think people spend a lot of time focusing on what sex means between them and the person they're having sex with, and that is important to know too. But it's also important to understand what sex means to you, what your relationship is to sex as a concept, not just the thing you're doing with another person.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be something that results in a relationship of love in the stars forever.
Yeah,
That's
but
not
for
how
some
it
people,
should
some
be
people it
expected
does
to
have
end
to be that,
ever.
though. Yeah, but for
Yeah,
some
I
people
guess.
it does have to be that way, and that's fine. There's no value judgment here. Some people have everybody. Your relationship with sex is personal and it's complicated. That's one of the things that people think of as being simple. That sex always means this, it always means that. That's not how it works. Fred Undead says that her old boss did that. I'm assuming connected with an
Ew.
old fling on
Oh.
social
That was-
media and then broke up their relationships. Boomers dated differently though. I mean, I think it's
Yeah,
funny.
it's
People always
still a
talk
thing
about,
that happens.
yeah, people always talk about like baby boomers and like the summer of love and free love and everything, but they certainly don't live like that now. Any of the ones I know.
I see this going three ways. So this is just
That's
one
you're
minute
right.
here.
What they should do is these people that wrote the letter, this guy that wrote the letter, should get a three-way with this
No,
girl, and that
no.
way
Maybe that's a good idea too, but that's another
how
thing
he
they
knows
really
whether
need to
he likes
discuss
it.
first. That is a verbal communication thing first. Well, okay, so here's what I'm going to say. They could let this go, continue being good friends, support each other, love each other as friends for the rest of their lives. Maybe they'll disconnect at some point, and that would be a wonderful result to all of this. They could also go for it, fall deeply in love because they know each other so well. She invited him to her house after she broke up with her boyfriend. So this is not a one-sided thing here. And it wasn't just the wine, guys. Come on. Let's be well, they can't be.
I hope
They
it
can't
wasn't, because that makes it creepy and gross. But it wasn't.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
They did it again the next day, so it
Yeah.
wasn't
So
just
yeah,
that
we
they
know.
were
We know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry,
and-
one bottle of wine split between two people isn't enough to get anybody drunk enough to make that kind of decision.
No, it just makes those lovey feelings sometimes happen between people. But okay, anyway, so that's the second option. They fall in love forever, go for the stars, shoot for the moon, and it's a beautiful, beautiful thing that makes Oldmin cry. And then the third thing is they do that for 10 years, and then he gets in touch with his other girl who he was in touch with as a kid, and they start talking on Facebook, and it all falls apart. And that would be wonderful too, because you know what? People in their 20s are allowed to make those kind of mistakes. People in their 30s, people in their 40s, anybody is allowed to make that kind of mistake. And you know what? Maybe mistake is the wrong label too, because that's just how people live.
This is such a difference. I can't stress enough, Oldman, I 100% respect your views on this. There's no right or wrong answer, but you and I feel so differently.
I think if kids come into the picture, it really changes things.
I mean, sure, if she gets knocked up from that 2 times they had sex, and that obviously, depending on where they live, I mean, if they're in Alabama, then I think legally they have to get married now, right? Isn't that
no, it's only if they're Habsburgs.
I think just from how my interpretation of this letter, which is very different from yours, is that they should have a conversation and say, hey, this thing happened. Yes. I had a really good time. I just want to know, like, where do you and I stand? Seems like we're returning back to how everything was before. That's what I want. Is that what you want? Cool. then let's just do that. We don't ever,
Yes.
it wasn't a mistake. I don't have any regrets. I had a good time.
A conversation
too.
needs to happen,
Yeah,
but they
but
also
you-
need to be really irresponsible a few more times before they have that conversation.
It's-
That's the
yeah,
only difference between where you and I are on.
I think they need to have the conversation first.
No,
"Yeah,
that's
you know,
gonna
I'm in a
gonna
weird-
fuck it
I'm in
up.
a weird
In their
part
early 20s, that's gonna fuck it up.
if one of them's like, I'm in a really weird
Freak it
time in
out.
my life. I really like being friends with you. I just want to do that, but can we still just have sex every once in a while? That's fine too.
Perfectly
I've been in one of
acceptable.
those before. That's exactly sometimes what you need in your life. So I respect all of that. But whatever. It's not clear from the letter what the letter writer wants. He certainly doesn't know what she wants. They need to have a conversation about it sooner as opposed to later. Nothing needs to change.
Okay. Well, I'm not even saying a long time. I'm saying like a month or two, maybe. That's a reasonable period for people to try to figure it out when they're having sex.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair for sure.
But don't freak it up.
Yeah, make
Kid,
sure that
I
have
want you to
protection.
win.
Yeah. One of the things that I didn't know
Both
how
of
to
you.
do with all of that friend sex I was having in my early 20s, one thing I didn't know how to do was to ask someone what birth control they're on instead of just assuming that they were, because that's
We're
an
not-
important conversation to have.
I'm not going to tell you my story about that. Sorry. Let's go on.
That's fine. All right. Well, that was fun. Let's go. I want to just go right into another question because I don't feel like struggling through SimCity.
I'm having a really good time. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I got two more questions and they're short ones, but let's keep going. And we haven't done a little checkup in a little bit. We don't have a big turnout tonight, but that's fine. This is the Advice Stream. I'm your host, Jeremy International. I am joined as per the usual with the king of the internet, Oldmin, on the show this evening. If you would like to seek advice from me and Oldmin, man, I hope that we get some more casual sex questions because I'm so fascinated in how me and Oldman think about this in such a fundamentally different way.
Yeah.
Please send us all of your casual sex related. I'm going to go ahead and call it right now, Oldman. Next week is going to be a sex show. We're just going to do
next
sex
week
questions.
Jeremy and me are just doing casual sex next week. Me and Jeremy, casual sex next
We're going to
week.
stream it somewhere else because Twitch and Facebook and YouTube don't like that. We're gonna do maybe it's not gonna be isolated to just casual, but we're gonna do an all sex question show next week.
Oh boy, that's
so if you have sex questions, go ahead and send them in now. We'll save them till next week. That will be fun. I think it's so interesting how different you and I are on this. Once again, in a really wonderful way that friends should have disagreements about things. So we'll do that. Maybe if I can get my life together enough, we'll have some guests that can,
guests.
I'm
sorry, I won't say that. I'm not, joke done. Joke about that done.
Fred Undead says, "What is a penis?" Fred Undead, I know that you know what that is.
It's a miserable little creature.
Once again, a difference of opinion there, Oldman. Okay,
difference
here's
of size
another
too,
one. Are any of these? Okay, this one's kind of sort of sex related. Not really. I'm a 32-year-old heterosexual woman. There's this guy in my workplace, Jason. He's not on my team, so I only really speak to him if I need him to move out of the way in the break room so I can get to the coffee machine. I don't think I've spoken more than 10 words to him at a time. He's good looking, not like male model tier hot, but definitely draws looks. He's also married, or at least wears a ring. That's a weird thing to say. For the past month or so, I've had persistent fantasies where he feels me up somewhere. Yeah, this is sex related. In the office. Not usually full-on sex. This is not the sort of thing I usually fantasize about or do in my actual sex life. And I know pretty much nothing about this guy. I'm not even sure if he's married to a man or a woman. I have no idea where this comes from, and it's really quite embarrassing. I'd like to get rid of these intrusive thoughts, but I have no idea where even to begin. How do you tamp down something like this? So, lady working in an office, she doesn't really work with this guy. She sees him every once in a while, and she has a really specific, what I would say, barely sexual fantasy of him just like groping her in the workplace. And she doesn't want to feel this way. She calls it an intrusive thought. What's your take on this one, Oldman?
Totally different take. Dreams are unpredictable. They don't always mean what they say at face value. What that dream is telling her might be important, and she should probably, try to think about where it might be coming from, but that doesn't mean it has anything connected to him whatsoever. The dream man that she sees in her dreams is herself, not that man in real life. It's a part of her. It's a part of her that's trying to talk to herself.
Yeah.
Or feel herself up.
Interesting. Yeah. She uses the term intrusive thought, and to me that seems like a really extreme word for this. Like intrusive thoughts, at least I've always understood that term to mean that it's causing you a lot of distress to be like intrusive thoughts. I think of that as being something that's like violent or horrific or unspeakable in some way, and not just that some dude that you work with is, grabbing you or something. Yeah, that your part though about how every part of your subconscious is a part of you. So really, part of her is trying to communicate something to her. I didn't think about it that way before, but I really like that idea. I think that when you get kind of like in these, whatever the thought is, if it's a sexual fantasy, if it's something else, when you get these kind of reoccurring loops in your mind, it's like when you get a piece of a song stuck, like you get like a earworm or whatever, and if you can follow to the end of the tune, if you can get to the end of the song in your mind, then it usually stops bothering you as much. So I mean, I definitely think her kind of, instead of trying to avoid these fantasies, to follow, not in real life because you're in your workplace, but in maybe the privacy of like, making yourself a nice bath or something, or getting the oscillating shower head or whatever, if you know what I mean.
It's not even necessarily about sex or even romance or anything like that. It could be something completely different based on her personal circumstances.
But I think she needs to, in the privacy of her home, explore where that fantasy wants to go, if instead of trying to push it out of her mind, if she leans into it. I think that's the best way to kind of address any kind of persistent thought, is to kind of lean in, follow it through to its conclusion, and see if it makes it take up a little bit less space in your life.
I have tons of opinions about dreams that we haven't even.
I know. I always forget because you've read a lot of like Jungian stuff, right? And he's all about.
Well, yeah, and it's also 99% BS, and there's a few things in there that are interesting, and they sort of caught my attention a few years ago, and I thought about it a lot. I'm not saying I'm an expert or anything, obviously, but like. But what I'm saying here, I guess, is, isn't it wonderful when you have a series of dreams and then there's a conclusion to that series of dreams?
Yeah.
There's a dream that ends it. That rarely happens, especially in dreams that are about anxiety. And then the other thing I would say is, I agree with you about all of that, except for the times when your dream function goes wrong because you have trauma. And then it goes on in your head over and over and over and over for no reason, and it doesn't help you.
Yeah. But I mean, tell me that I'm wrong. I don't have an awful lot of experience with kind of dealing with traumatic experiences like that. But I believe that that's a lot of times what they do in therapy is they ask you to, instead of trying to escape from those thoughts, to sit with them for a little bit, to see if you can come to peace with what you've experienced by, under safe circumstances, by letting yourself at least relive a part of it. I mean, isn't that how they usually treat that sort of thing?
Mm-hmm. And I think that's an important thing to do in your conscious waking life. Let me give you my basic theory about dreams.
Okay, please.
And it has science. It has scientific basis. It's not what Jung says about it.
By the way, while we're doing this, just as a reminder to everybody, if you'd like to seek advice from us, head on over to JeremyInternational.com. If you have sex-related advice questions, send them in anytime you want to, but we're going to go over all those. We're going to save them all up for next week. Okay, go ahead. Let me lay it on me,
fun.
Oldman. Dream
Okay.
times.
Basic theory of dreams. Dreams, all animals have dreams. Even very basic animals have dreams. And one of the main theories of dreams is that they are there to allow you to simulate and practice things that might harm you in the future.
Yeah.
And so this is a little mystical weirdo thing, but it's kind of like we have a little guardian angel for reals in our subconscious that's trying to help us out when we're asleep. However, if you have a traumatic experience, the evolutionary function of that dream is going to get caught in a loop, and it's going to harm you more than it helps you. That's basically what I was trying to say.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a evolution of dreams, and also of like your ability to imagine, to be able to picture things in your head that haven't happened. Makes a lot of biological and evolutionary sense why that would be something that animals need to do.
It would help you survive.
Yeah, it's like you're making like our imagination can function as like a simulator. Like you can say, hey, we're gonna go find a woolly mammoth. When we do, Phil's gonna go on this side, and Ricky's gonna go on this side, and we're gonna stab them all with our spears at the same time or whatever. But that's amazing. If you don't have an imagination, you can't do that. I mean,
but my friend, what did the spear really mean?
Sometimes a spear is just a spear. That'd be cool, like Star Trek society. They meet a culture that doesn't have any imagination. I feel like they've probably done that already.
And then the doctor from Voyager would bring it to them.
Yeah. Imagine. Okay, well, we're at 10:30. I got one last question. Let's do it. And then we'll probably start to wrap things up for the evening.
We're going to speed run this last question.
We're going to speed run it. This is, I mean, I guess in a vague way, vaguely sex related, but not really. My whole life since I was a child, I have said I had no interest in having kids. When I was dating, this is something I made clear early on. My fiance is even more anti-kids than me. I always said it wouldn't be my preference, but if it happens, then it's fine. But he said absolutely no kids. Did I do this one last week or 2 weeks ago? I don't
Doesn't
think
matter.
so.
Let's do it again. I'll say something totally different.
Well, time has passed and I'm growing up and settling down more. I feel like we've done this one already. I find myself having dreams about having kids or being pregnant. I've been dealing with some mild health issues, nothing major. We've definitely done this before, but we'll revisit. Nothing major, just new food sensitivities that I haven't exactly pinpointed yet. And I've been throwing up a lot, especially in the morning. To rule out the obvious option of morning sickness, I have taken a few pregnancy tests, and I am sort of secretly hoping they're positive, despite knowing I'm on birth control. That's written weird. I've tried to bring it up to my fiance, and he's not receptive at all, to the point that he won't even really have a conversation at all. When I bring up what if I want to have kids eventually, he says we don't want kids, so we don't have to worry about that. So this is a normal phase for is this a normal phase for women to go through? Is this going to pass? And if not, I don't know what to do. How can I show him that I've changed my mind?
Yeah, well, I can't speak for women in general, but I do know that people change their attitudes about children over the course of their lives. And if you started out in a relationship with one understanding and you feel like another one is coming to you and that you might be changing, then you need to talk about that with the person you care about.
Her question, how can I show him that I've changed my mind? Well, I mean, it seems like she has changed her mind. So then she just needs to tell him that. And if he's unwilling to hear it or consider it, then, I mean, good news, you're not married, you're just engaged. Even
if she is unsure herself, just having the conversation, I might change my mind about this in the future, one way or another. Is that okay with you?
I being in being in a long-term committed relationship means anticipating that people change, because people always change. The idea that people never change is nonsense. That's the one thing that's consistent, is everybody is changing all the time. And if you get married and have like a ceremony and sign a contract, or if you just say, hey, I really like you a lot and I want to live the rest of my life with you, you're committed to changing together. And if you decide that you don't want to do that, if one person changes in a way that the other person doesn't want to change along with them, then that's the reason, really, that's the best reason that relationships end. And it's sad and it's difficult, but I mean, you're not even, you're planning on getting married, you're not married, he's not even willing to have a conversation with you. That's how strongly he feels, and his feelings about this are his feelings. He has a right to them too. He's so adamantly not interested in even having a conversation about kids. It seems to me there's only one way to move forward here, and this person wouldn't be writing the letter if they hadn't actually changed their mind. They want to have a kid. They're hoping, despite the fact that they're on birth control, that they somehow miraculously get pregnant.
Yeah, if I was going to make all those assumptions about those two young people earlier, you can certainly make that same assumption, because we both have been around the block a little bit, you more than I, and we've both seen couples that thought originally they didn't want to have kids, and then they get a little older and then they want to have kids, and there has to be a conversation between those two things.
Yeah.
And there has to be uncertainty between those two things too.
Yeah. Certainty is a tricky thing, but I think that it's pretty clear here. I don't think the question, how can I show him that I've changed my mind? Tell him that you have. And if he doesn't want to go on that journey with you, don't pressure him to go on the journey with you. You should end the relationship so that he can find you can find someone who has similar values.
Absolutely.
Committing to change is a serious commitment to make, and if a person isn't willing to or able to change with you, then that's the time to end it. And it doesn't have, no one has to be upset about anything. This is how relationships are designed to go. You change together or you don't, and then you split up.
Yes, and having a kid is probably the most important personal experience anyone can have. That changes their lives in so many ways.
Yeah.
You really do have to be on board together if you want to make that work very well.
Yeah, I agree with that. So it seems like the solution here is it's unfortunate, it's too bad, but these things happen, and this is why people invented divorce. This is why not every person that ever falls in love stays with the person they fell in love with for the rest of their lives. A lot of these long-term relationships don't work out.
But I really hope those two early 20-year-old kids make it work, because that made me cry a little bit.
I just think that they're besties, and they had a good time
with
each other.
They are
besties,
besties,
and they're right back to being besties again, and that's all that it is.
We're gonna come to blows over this one, I can tell.
Yeah, I know. I think that this is just they were both of them were sad and just a little tipsy and horny.
Yeah.
And they decided to do this thing together for funsies, and they're just going right back to being friends again.
Take that microscope to it, but don't retrieve the microscope for a month or two.
We're never gonna see eye to eye on that one. Man, I wish that we could find out what happened, because I want to.
Me too.
This guy, and he's like, yeah, we
God,
were
I
back
hope
to
so
being
much
friends again, and it's so cool.
Yeah, that would be like the second best result.
Yeah, and I think that would be the best result. And then he's like, we make jokes about it all the time.
Don't you want two young kids to fall in love forever? Don't you believe in stars and moons?
I mean,
or planets that have continents, for that matter.
I definitely don't believe in SimEarth. I bet you that game is cool. It's just this isn't the avenue that I would like to learn how it works.
It's more of a sim than anything else. I've read a couple articles about it over the years, and that's how it was really intended, is that like it's one of those things that is more let it run than any of the other games.
It's wild that they released it for the Super Nintendo. What a crazy
Yeah.
time.
Barely a game even.
Yeah. Cool. Well, maybe we won't even do a game. I think I might make some calls and see if I can get some guests on for next week, and we'll just have
Yeah, that sounds so fun.
lots of conversations.
The people who didn't attend tonight missed out. This was one of our very good shows. I'm proud of this show. I think both of us can be proud of it.
Yeah. I'm proud of all of our shows. This was good. I mean, the only thing that really matters is we had fun, and hopefully the 3 people that were watching at home had fun too.
That's really the only thing that matters to me too.
Yeah. What's happening? Okay. Well, so let's start to wrap things up. This has been the Advice Stream. I'm your host, Jeremy International. This episode of the Advice Stream is unofficially sponsored by Haribo Gold Bears, the champagne of gummy bears. If you like to get down with gummy bears, you can't do better than Haribo Gold Bears. That's their catchphrase right there. The original since 1922. So let's not think too much about a German company that's existed since 1922. That's not relevant. Also, I just realized the graphic I brought up is a 5-pound bag of gummy bears.
Oh, Lord.
Wow.
Party size.
That's a lot of gummy bears. And please never forget, as long as you live, that in every bag of Haribo Gold Bears, the green gummy bear is the strawberry flavored gummy bear. Who would have guessed? But there's your proof. Never forget. We are live on Facebook and Twitch and YouTube, as well as JeremyInternational.com every Monday, give or take, at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. If you would like to contribute with a question of your own to the conversation, you can go to JeremyInternational.com, and there's a contact form. Did I do that already? What else am I saying? You can also leave a tip there if you want to. No one ever has, so don't feel any pressure to. But it is possible if you so choose. I will use that money to buy more old video games to play on the stream, because that is all that I spend my personal money on these days. Maybe the occasional Godzilla. So thanks for joining us, everyone. I hope you had a good time. Do you have a good time, Oldman? I had a good time.
Oh, I had one of the best times, honestly. This was so much fun.
One of the best times.
We've done this, 10 times now. So
only 10 times?
I'm sure it's got to be around 10 times where I was your sidekick. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it feels good. I'm having a good time. So we will see you next week. Same, all of the things that I said. And maybe we'll have guests, and we'll take lots of questions that involve SEX. Have a good one, everybody. Be safe, be kind to yourself, and also everybody else in the world. And we'll see you next time.